the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am privileged to be sitting down with an MS warrior that is also retired military, United States Navy. She has a beautiful voice. She was with the Navy choir, and she's a Northwestern graduate, so I got to give props out to the Big Ten, being that I'm a Michigan grad. But please welcome to the show, Kristin. How are you doing today, Kristin?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Kristin, I am so intrigued by you being a military vet. I have a military family also, and when I heard your story and just started following you, it was just amazing. And then when I contacted you and we started talking, it was like really amazing, your story. I know you have MS, but I just want you to explain what you did in the Navy first, and then we'll get into the MS stuff. But I'm blown away, and I want to thank you for your service and just talk a little bit about your military.
Well, thank you. And it was my pleasure to serve. I was happy to serve for all 20 years. So as you said, I went to Northwestern University. I studied music there. I was an opera performance major. And I saw a flyer on a wall to audition for the United States Navy Band, Washington, D.C. And I didn't even know there was such a thing as a military band that was like a permanent Whitehouse staff unit.
Yeah.
So I decided to send a tape in. And I had spoken with the head of the School of Music, Henry Beenan was his name. And his first job was as a bugler in the Navy Band. And he was like, yeah, you should totally audition for this, Kristin. It's a way to get some performances under your belt, and you'll get to see and meet some really neat people. Mm-hmm. So I sent in a tape and got called back and was offered the position after a long, grueling audition process. And then after I was offered the billet in the Navy Band, I went to my local recruiting station because even though I was a college graduate, in order to have a permanent duty station in Washington, D.C., you have to be enlisted.
Okay.
So I actually went to a recruiter and went to Great Lakes and went to boot camp and then stationed at the United States Navy Band, Washington, D.C., where I spent my 20-year career.
Wow, that is just so... So explain with the Navy Band. I know we were talking about this before, and I was just blown away about so many cool things that you did. You got to meet like 4 or 5 presidents and sing at Super Bowls, and I mean it's just so cool. Just talk a little bit about that, and then we'll start talking about your MS.
Sure. Yes. All right. So the United States Navy Band, Washington, D.C., supports the President of the United States. So whenever he or other high-ranking officials have people in town, we would go and sing for those, like between dinner and dessert. We would be the 12 minutes of entertainment between. So I did get to meet a lot of administrations and see a lot of rooms in the White House and the vice president's residence that probably a lot of people haven't seen. And some people were really, really nice and some people weren't. And it really had nothing to do with politics. It had really more to do with personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really neat. And I did get to do some cool things. I got to sing in Reagan's funeral and Ford's funeral, Neil Armstrong's funeral. And I did get to sing at the Super Bowl when Renee Fleming was the singer in the Seahawks one.
Oh
I
my
think it was
God, that
20.
is so awesome. You know,
Yeah, it's cool.
I got to meet Gerald Ford. He was a University of Michigan grad, and he played football, and he came and talked to the football team before I played in the '89 Rose Bowl, and it was amazing to meet the guy. And I'm, you know, but I was 18 years old, and I'm like, you know what? He's just like me. He puts his pants on the same way.
Yes, yes, and so convivial. Just what a neat person. I was very honored to sing for his funeral, for sure.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Always honored to be part of any national day of remembrance is really just what an honor to be a part of,
Yeah,
is how I always,
yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah,
so you're in the military, and obviously you're in great shape because you got to be in great shape to get to enlist and go through boot camp and all that. And
yeah,
you're going through boot camp and you're singing and all that, and now all of a sudden you're having symptoms and you're wondering something's not right, and you're about to go through your diagnosis. Kind of like tell us how that whole path went for you. I mean, you're a Navy. United States
yeah,
Navy, and you got MS symptoms going on.
yeah. So I enlisted in 2000, and then I had my boys in 2003 and 2007. I was training for a triathlon and was diagnosed with MS in 2010. So I was already halfway through my military career when I was diagnosed.
Hmm.
Um, and then, I had pretty intense symptoms. Like I was training for a triathlon, had weird tingling feelings in my back, eventually turned into optic neuritis. I ended up trying several DMTs that I did not like.
Hmm.
Avonex being the first one, just didn't care for it. It just didn't, my body did not agree with it. Anyway, so I was afraid to take DMTs because I didn't like how they made me feel. Then I saw a documentary on Netflix that really made me feel like I had chronic Lyme disease. So I found a doctor that treated for that and was completely MS symptom free until 2017. And then I woke up one morning with an MS hug and couldn't feel anything from the waist down. That's when I went into the hospital, did the Solumedrol week-long thing, as we all know, the drip.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, did that, and then had to be serious about getting back on a DMT so that I could make it through the end of my military career and try to retire as a full
yeah,
20-year veteran, not somebody who medically retired. And
yeah,
fortunately, I did squeak by, thank God. I was able to make the PT standards and stay within standards enough that I was able to retire. So
yeah.
I'm so grateful for that.
And amen. That's so awesome. It's just an unbelievable story that you made it that long. 10 years in the military with this disease. But let's back up to when you got diagnosed. So you're in the military and you get diagnosed with this disease, multiple sclerosis. I don't know how much you knew about multiple sclerosis back when you got diagnosed, but how did that affect you? Just the mental part of it. I mean, you got 10-year career, you got a couple kids at home, and now all of a sudden, bam, here's multiple sclerosis.
Well, so ironically or not ironically, my husband's mother also had multiple sclerosis. So we already lived. My husband is Russian, and was an only grandchild. So we actually all lived together in a family. It was beautiful. The four generations, we all lived together.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was already there the care of somebody who had multiple sclerosis when I myself discovered that I now had this disease that my husband's mother has. What are the chances? Because there's obviously we weren't related, and there's no genetic
Yeah.
component to multiple sclerosis as far as they can see anyway.
Wow.
So who knows why? But so we both had it. But she was obviously far progressed because she had had it for 26 years.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that was your introduction to multiple sclerosis, and now you
Yeah.
are diagnosed with that disease. How did that go? What went through your head when you got that diagnosis?
Well, always try to look for the silver lining.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, okay, so I have this challenge. How can I use this to be better?
Mm-hmm.
How can I use this to make the world better? Like, what can I do? Because I can't look around and feel sorry for myself because there are so many things in my life that are wonderful that I can't. I very rarely do I sit down and just say, man, this sucks. And I do let myself do that. I let the monster out of the bag.
Yeah.
But I don't, it's so unnecessary to live in that space. I'd much rather look around and be grateful for all of the things that are wonderful in my day
Yeah.
instead of focusing on the thing in my day that really is a bummer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean because I've pretty much lived my 27 years like that too, Kristen. I mean, after diagnosis, I didn't really know what MS really was, being 27 years old.
Right.
But as I learned it, what it was all about, I'm sitting here like, okay, well, I can either sit here and feel sorry for myself the rest of my life, or I can just say, you know what, let's attack this thing and let's go at it and let's just see what happens. And that's kind of the attitude I took on it. I mean, yeah, I had my ass kicking days where I had to go in and get a 5-day Solu-Medrol treatment and all that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I had a lot of scary moments, where I thought I thought I lost the ability to walk, and
Yes. Me
um,
too.
but
Very scary.
you can't quit. You got to keep on, and that seems to be your attitude. Is like, I don't know if it's the military in you, or I don't know if it's the football player in me, but
Right.
it's something that
Body and motion takes in motion.
yeah, yeah. It's just, it's a fight. As soon as you hear those words, it's like, okay, game on, let's go, let's fight. And you're gonna get
That's right.
kicked. You're gonna get kicked, but you got to still get up, and you got to look at all the
That's
positive, and you got to look at all the positive things that you accomplished in your life. Like MS is
right.
never ever going to be able to take away the fact that I played in 3 Rose Bowls and a Gator Bowl, and one
Yeah.
Flemington. And MS is never going to take the fact that you've sang for 5 presidents.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I love your
Yeah.
I love your attitude. So
Thanks.
on top of this diagnosis and on top of your fight, you find out that you also get diagnosed with breast cancer recently, and
Yeah.
and you're still this positive person that I'm talking to right now, and I want to talk a little bit about that on top of having to deal with the MS on what you're dealing with now with this cancer.
Yeah. So December 23rd, I got a phone call saying that my mammogram and biopsy did come back as cancerous. Actually, I have two different kinds of cancer. One of them is a ductal carcinoma. I can't remember.
Mm.
And then the other one, the HER2 positive, which is the really aggressive cancer that they need to get rid of, like as quickly as possible. So, yeah, I was diagnosed December 23rd. I had a bilateral mastectomy on February 5th. And actually, just today, I went back to Walter Reed, where I'm seen at the National Military Center here in the DC area. I got my CT scan, and thank goodness the cancer has not spread past my lymph nodes. However, it did spread to my lymph nodes, so I still do need to get some chemotherapy, especially because we have multiple sclerosis. Um, because without chemotherapy, my chance of survival would be about 30%.
Yeah.
And with chemotherapy, my chance of survival is about 93%.
Gotcha.
Because I'm 48 and my boys are both seniors, one in high school and one in college, I want to be around for a little while,
Yeah.
So I know it's going to be hard for about a year. And then I'm going to have, 20, 30 good years in me.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to a couple. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You got this, Kristen. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2001, and she went on 20 years after that. And I always told her you're a badass mom, because she never let anything stop her. I mean, she just kept on going, never stopped.
I hope I get to be like your mom. That's my goal.
Oh, I can see it. I can see it. So I want to talk too about what we were talking about earlier, how you're not 100% sure, but you're kind of thinking that maybe some of the DMTs could have had something to do with your breast cancer. Because, I mean, and that is another thing that us as MSers, I mean, every time we get thrown on a DMT and we read the label, it's always like it tears apart your liver, it tears apart your kidney, it tears apart this. But we got to make that decision. And so I kind of want to talk about, your thoughts on that and your choices to go off of your DMTs, and you're looking more natural now.
Well, I have been trying to look at being as natural as possible forever, but I'm still taking I took the Ocrevus in November. I am scheduled to do it in May, but now they'll have to cancel that anyway because I'm doing chemotherapy and they can't do both at the same time. But I really kind of didn't want to take a DMT anymore anyway because of the side effects.
Yeah.
One of them being cancer.
Yeah.
And so in getting my cancer diagnosis, I went ahead and did the genetic testing because I do have two sons and a sister. And I wanted to make sure that they weren't at high risk or there wasn't some genetic marker for cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't. Of all the 51 things I was tested for, they all came back negative,
mm-hmm.
which means that my cancer did come from something environmental. And the only thing that I know that I do, because I do eat pretty healthy, I eat a whole food diet for the most part. I mean, I have a son in high school, so I do have McDonald's French fries now and again.
Yeah.
But mostly I eat a pretty healthy diet. And now, post-cancer diagnosis, I eat a ridiculously healthy diet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think diet has so much to do with it. And I do think that the Ocrevus contributed to my body to, have two positive mitosis become cancerous in my body.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I do think that the DMT had something to do with it. I can't prove it, but I mean, I did have to sign a piece of paper before I took Ocrevus 8 years ago saying that I understood I was at higher risk for cancer.
Right. And we all have to do that. It doesn't even matter what DMT it is. I mean, if you take Tysabri, I remember signing paperwork when I started on Tysabri that, you got to understand that there's a possibility of PML. I didn't even know what PML was, but when I read it, I'm and then when I read what it was, I'm like, ooh, that's bad. But I still went on to Sabri because I didn't want to get worse with my MS. So, I mean, you got to make those choices.
That's right. And they're not easy to make.
No, they're not. They're not easy to make because, like I said, you have two choices. You either go without any DMT and just whatever happens naturally happens, or you got a chance of a DMT maybe slowing it down and giving you 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 more years.
Right.
Possibly. Everything's a gamble. It's like we're in a casino after we get diagnosed and we're throwing dice,
Exactly. I was going to say throwing darts.
Yeah.
There you go. 2 games.
Yeah.
Same place.
So I know being in the military, how important do you think, I know you think nutrition is, how important do you think the exercise part of it is? Because for me, being a former football player, all that, and after being 27 years living with this, I think exercise is like one of the, if not the most important part as far as taking care of your body.
100%.
Yeah.
I think nutrition and exercise are right there hand in hand.
Yeah.
I think they're equally as important. And I used to think exercise was more important, but as my diet has become cleaner and cleaner, I see even my weight is, I've lost 85 pounds in the last 8 years simply because I eat right and my body is slowly just getting to where it wants to be. Because I always have exercised, even though now the way that I exercise is very different. It's getting in a pool and doing jumping jacks and being excited when I don't fall over when I do one, which is very different than the triathlon training I did 15 years ago. But I still try to be as active as I can, even if it's just stretching, or I do have a lady before pre-surgery, I was going once a week to PT. I have an awesome trainer that I just love. Um, I still try to do weight training as much as possible and use bands and all the rest of it,
Hmm.
stay flexible, keep things moving, you know, keep the strength where you can.
Yep.
Don't get much creatine, take a creatine supplement
Hmm.
so you don't lose muscle.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100% on all of that. That's pretty much the way I've attacked this disease. It's just you got to take care of your body. I graduated from Michigan. I played at around 295, right close to 300. And I've always tried to keep my weight right around 270, 275, because I know if I get over into the 300s, that it's a strain on my body, and I don't need that strain with MS.
But mm-hmm,
So it's just
exactly.
it's important to take care of your body with this disease. So
Yeah.
let's switch over to I want to talk about how did you said you're married and have two kids and you got diagnosed and your kids were young. How did your kids and your husband and all that, how did they accept the disease and like actually accept the progression of the disease with you being military and not needing a cane to now needing a cane? How is the family acceptance with the disease?
I feel really lucky that my everybody has been incredibly empathic. Um, yeah, just really empathic. And I mean, my progression has been slow.
Hmm.
But as I needed more help, I think they're just happy to help me, because I'm happy to help however I can. So I think kind of what goes around comes around, and I'm happy to I'm happy to accept help from people who want to help me. And then I also don't need to accept help from people who don't want to.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful that my boys always want to help me. Because I always want to help them, so we have a really good open relationship. And I think, mental health and therapy have a huge piece to do with that as well.
Okay. And
Just to,
I know I have two kids too, and like, how did you explain when they were young? Like, did you what? Because my technique that I used with my kids is I was doing Capaxin. It was a once a day subcutaneous shot, and I would actually have my daughter and my son. They would take turns. One day one day the other. They would help push the plunger down. Just
oh, wow.
just so that they would understand, hey, you know what, dad's got to take a medicine every day. And, as they got
Yeah.
older, I was kind of explaining to them what I was doing and why I was doing it, what it was. And, my daughter did an episode with me and she said it actually really helped her understand it. And I'm just curious how you like helped your boys understand it as they were getting older.
Um, so my older boy is studying aeronautic science, and so he basically always has been a researcher. So I think he did all of his own research and figured out like exactly what the disease is on a scientific level,
Oh,
so that he could see, what possibly could be done to help the disease and what he could do.
wow.
And he's always looked at it from this pragmatic point of view.
Hmm.
And then my younger son is just instinctively very curious and helpful.
Hmm.
So I've always just answered questions as they've asked, but also because we lived with their grandmother, who also had the disease and was much progressed. I think they were just able to sort of see it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, I just sort of let them see it
Yeah.
organically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's just, I'm curious as to, how different, because like I told my daughter when we did our episode, I'm like, Meg, I don't know if it was the right or wrong way. I go, that's why I'm asking you. So it's just interesting how,
Right.
how different people do it, because I don't know what the right or wrong answer is.
Yeah, I think really it depends on the child and on your relationship with your child and how, your style of communication, one style of communication,
Hmm.
but I don't think there is a right or wrong way, but I certainly think being open is the best way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, they're going to find out sooner or later, I mean, and why? I mean, if I'm falling, I don't want them to think that I'm just falling because I can't walk. I want them to understand why I'm falling.
A neurological condition yeah, exactly. I always feel like more information is better. I'd always have more information about something and then be able to form my own opinion based on some opinions and some facts,
Mhm. Yeah.
It's real life experience.
Yeah. Okay, now here's the next thing that I want to talk about, and this is the part that I absolutely love, because I know that MS has taken a lot of people's voice away, and you're a singer, and
Yeah.
you got to complete your 20-year career singing, and you still sing, and you still have a beautiful voice, and I just want to talk. I want to talk you to talk about. Even though that you have the mobility issues, you can't do what you used to do. You have to use a cane. You are still very positive, and you're still very giving and talented and sharing your talents. So I want to talk about what you do now that you're retired and still using your voice.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Um, I, well, first of all, I get to teach Sunday school, and I have a youth choir at a church downtown Annapolis that I just love and adore. And then I also take part in the Annapolis Chorale here in town in Annapolis, under the direction of Ernie Green. He is just wonderful. He started Live Arts Maryland from its inception, and he's just an incredible man with an incredible vision. And we get to do these, like right now we're doing the St. John Passion, and it's just amazing to be able to do these huge choral works with a small community, well, not small, a decent sized community choir and a beautiful orchestra that he puts together. And we get to do these performances that are really, really top notch.
Yeah.
So I don't feel so even though I'm not up on stage dancing and in the spotlight and, performing at the Whitehouse anymore, I still get to take part in these beautiful community productions of really good presentations of these classical pieces.
Yeah.
So I don't feel in any way like I'm missing out. And then also there are other opportunities with him. Like last year at the time, I actually got to sing with Paul Schaefer, and got to be his lead singer on one of his songs at a concert he did here in Annapolis last year. So I still get to do some really cool solo opportunities, even from a wheelchair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's different than I thought it would be, but I still get to do fun things.
Yeah.
Adapt to overcome, right?
Here's what I say. We figure shit out, and
That's right.
it does not matter. It doesn't matter. If MS takes away your ability to walk, you got to figure it out. You can still be productive.
Yeah,
If it takes
you
away,
get there somewhere else,
yeah,
some other way.
if it takes away, your ability to use a hand, you got to figure it out. There's always a way. It is always a way to make yourself happy and enjoy the rest of your life. And I absolutely love that you're still enjoying this, contributing to the performance part of your life, and that's just so awesome, Krista. Just so awesome.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
So, if anybody listening wants to actually hear Kristin sing, she actually has a lot of stuff on YouTube. She sent me. If I can get them to copy and paste, I'm not sure I can get them to copy and paste into the description, but I will put the links in the description so you can search her on YouTube and just listen to some of the beautiful performances that she has given. Me and my wife just sat there and listened to them all one night, and we were just sitting there going, "Oh my God, absolutely gorgeous voice, this Kristin you have."
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. Kristin, if there's anything else that you want to tell anybody about multiple sclerosis, be a Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month, what would you tell anybody that is trying to figure out this disease, doesn't understand it? Just give them some advice how to get diagnosed. What to do.
I would join a community, first of all, of MS warriors. Like, I'm so glad that we found each other
Yeah.
through TikTok, of all places. But There are some really great MS communities in places that you wouldn't even look or think to look.
Hmm.
Um, there really are lots of positive places to look, for curiosity of DMTs or symptoms or just to, funny jokes or
Hmm.
just to even when you're having a sad day, just to get encouragement.
Yep.
But I would say just don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions,
I,
and try to find other like-minded, positive people. I found a really cool local charity here called MS for MS. Sam Greenberg runs it, and it's Mission Stadium for multiple sclerosis, and they're spreading orange and making people know all about the disease. And it's just really neat to
yeah.
watch the community grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's more of it now than there was 27 years ago. I know, like when I got diagnosed, there was no internet. There wasn't really a lot known about this disease other than the people that
Right.
had the disease. So, and
Exactly.
being 27 years later, and I just found TikTok too about a year ago. I didn't even know that there was a community like that. I mean, I got 1,500 followers on TikTok, and probably 1,400 of them have MS or another chronic
Yep.
disease. And,
Yep.
we can sit there and talk to each other and say something and they understand it. And,
Well, we're friends.
yeah, yeah. It, and that is one of the best things that I have found, that I totally recommend to anybody that's going through chronic disease. Find a community out there, that understands you, because there's going to be a lot of people that don't, and that's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
We're trying to make people understand this disease. I really appreciate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today, Kristen. Awesome, awesome. I'm privileged to have met you. I just, anybody military, I bow to them. Like I said, I got my two nieces and my nephew are in the military. I love the military. I will always support them, and I thank you for your service.
It was truly my pleasure. Thank you, Brian.
All right, this is the MS Michigan Man. I'm going to get going. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok, MS Michigan Man 64. Also on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. You can find me on Facebook, Brian Wallace, out of Brunswick, Ohio. And I am out of here till the next show. You all have a good day.